What is up, everybody? We about to get into the original Gangsters by Ben Westhoff. It's about the hardcore West Coast gangster rap scene, man. And this is the part where Tupac, the aftermath after Tupac got shot, man. Sad day. I remember that day. I think I might have been at a football game when word was going around and Tupac had passed. But anyway, let's go ahead and check this video out and I'm gonna come back with my reaction. Hit the thumbs up button, guys.
FDIL. As they drove, they blasted music from the new album Tupac was working on called The Don Killuminati, The 7-Day Theory. The BMW was stopped by a police officer who gave Suge a warning for not properly displaying plates, but they were quickly back on their way, and the celebratory mood continued.
I thought it was
With the
music was loud.
BMW's windows open,
They said that he got pulled over because the music was too loud, but
a car of female Tupac fans recognized him and began screaming. He encouraged them to join the caravan. As the BMW approached the intersection of Flamingo and Koval, in front of the Maxim Hotel, a white Cadillac going in the opposite direction did a U-turn and pulled up next to them. An arm holding a .40 caliber Glock extended out the window and began firing into the BMW. Tupac attempted to scramble out of the way and into the back seat. I grabbed him and said, "Get out," and covered him, Suge said. A dozen shots or so were fired, and Tupac was hit 4 times.
wow.
One of the bullets ricocheted off his hip bone, deflecting into his lung. Suge was grazed, likely from a bullet fragment or piece of flying debris from the shot-up car. He said, "I'm hit," Suge recalled in an interview with BET's Stephanie Frederick. "So I'm driving like a madman to the hospital." And he said laughingly, jokingly, loudly, "I need a hospital. You're the one that's been shot in the head." A car containing Suge's enforcers chased after the white Cadillac, exchanging gunfire, but the shooter managed to escape.
Really?
Driving off wildly, Suge's car didn't make it to the hospital, instead colliding with a curb and blowing out its tires. The cops seized Suge, who was bleeding from his head, putting him spread eagle on the ground. Other members of the party were splayed onto the concrete, shotguns pointed at their heads, including Idi Amin, who said cops asked for their gang affiliations and the meanings of their tattoos. An ambulance arrived to take Tupac, bloody but still conscious, to University Medical Center Hospital. Waiting for his return at her Luxor suite, Kidada Jones was lying down to sleep when she received the call that Tupac had been shot. She rushed to the hospital. When I got to the hospital, they handed me a bag of bloody clothes and jewelry and told me he had no blood pressure when he came in, she wrote. He's had 2 blood transfusions and is in the ICU hanging by a string. He fought for 6 days, undergoing surgeries, including the removal of his right lung. Police and Fruit of Islam guards stood alert at the trauma unit doors. "Motherfuckers was calling the hospital making threats," said young Noble. He and fellow Outlaws member Napoleon had stayed behind in L.A., but after learning Tupac was shot soon arrived in Vegas, pistols in tow. Tupac's allies organized their own security detail, and the crew, which included members of the Outlaws, took shifts standing watch, armed and prepared for anything. "We was pretty much all ready to die at that point," said young Noble. News cameras crowded entryways, and fans drove by blasting Tupac music. Jasmine Guy, Hammer, and Jesse Jackson visited, while Danny Boy sat at his bedside and sang him one of his favorite songs, Sam Cooke's "A Change Is Gonna Come." On September 13th, Tupac's mother, Rafani, told doctors not to continue their efforts to resuscitate him. "Tupac would not have wanted to live as an invalid," she told the New Yorker. "It was like a spaceship had beamed down, snatched him, and took him away," wrote Frank Alexander. "It was that fast."
Crazy.
Smoke My Ashes. Tupac's body was cremated. His family held a private service in Las Vegas the day after his death, and thousands of fans flocked to public memorials for him in New York and Atlanta. A planned death row service for Tupac in LA was canceled, fueling conspiracy theories
What?
that he's still alive. Even Suge in 2014 insisted to TMZ that the rapper was smoking a Cuban
Mm.
cigar on an island
He
somewhere.
did that.
Meanwhile, having taken over Tupac's estate, Afeni faced court battles on many fronts. She fought off a claim to half of
Mm.
the estate from Tupac's father, and she sued Death Row for $50 million in unpaid royalties. Tupac had very little to his name when he died, as some of his cars and his
Damn, he
apartment
didn't even own
were in Death Row's name. The label claimed Tupac owed them money, $7.1 million for advances and loans. The suit was ultimately settled for undisclosed terms. Then there was activist C. Dolores Tucker, who
Wow.
sued the estate for $10 million, alleging in part that Tupac lyrics caused her
Damn.
emotional distress, and thus her husband was left without
What?
companionship and consortium. The twin burden of mourning her son while battling in court took its toll on Afeni, who died herself in
Mm.
May 2016. She was most moved to hear Dear Mama. Can I listen to it without crying? She said in a
Wait a minute, she died
1997
in
People interview.
2016. I thought she died like in like 2020. She died that long ago? I didn't know she died in 16. I thought she died. Wow, that's crazy. She's in her late
No,
70s, I think.
it gets worse every time. It gets harder.
Mm.
It really does. That song gets deeper and deeper. Some of Tupac's ashes were spread in the ocean. The outlaws bonded with his spirit in their own ways, taking his lyric from his posthumous song, Black Jesus, at its word. Cremated last wishes,
No, he didn't.
niggas smoke my ashes. We twist up some of that great granddaddy Cali Kush,
No, they didn't.
sprinkle some of the big homie in there, and guess what? Young Noble said.
Oh, that's
He's in our
sick.
system for
That
eternity.
is weird. Is that true?
Afeni sprinkled another portion of her son's ashes in her Stone Mountain, Georgia home's garden, making her eggplants and tomatoes
Jesus,
go
that's
crazy. Owing to his
eating him.
participation in the beating of Orlando Anderson at the MGM, Suge Knight was cited for a parole violation and
Mm.
sentenced to 9 years in prison. Death Row continued in his absence, led by figureheads including Reggie Wright Jr. Still, Suge was always kind of running the show, said their freelance publicist, Jonathan Wolfson. Though temporarily buoyed by posthumous Tupac albums, the label's fortunes diminished in the years that followed. A federal racketeering probe against Death Row spurred misdemeanor tax charges against the label and David Kenner. Death Row and Knight filed for
Mm.
bankruptcy in 2006, with items like the label's iconic electric chair
Really?
eventually sold at auction. Though difficult to feel much sympathy for Suge, it's nonetheless dispiriting to consider Death Row's fall, and how its spoils were ultimately divided up. The white co-founders of Interscope, Jimmy Iovine and Ted
Right.
Field, made countless millions. Tupac was left dead, and Suge and Dre came
Wow.
away with virtually nothing.
Mm,
Death
mm,
Row's other two initial founders, Dick Griffey and DOC, had to
mm.
sue to get their pennies, noted Griffey.
Only person came out on top was, of course, the white man. Sad story here, man, with the record business. But the good thing about that is that now with social media and with YouTube and different lanes, as far as the internet is concerned, and the rise of digital um, entertainment and content, a lot of cats can make money on their own now without having to deal with record labels and getting screwed in contracts and getting advances and then owing more than you got from the advance. Like you don't have to do that no more. A lot of people are independent now. Um, One of the late rappers, Young Dolph and even Nipsey Hussle, they really rallied and really chimed in on being independent and how you can take the game to the next level through the internet. You can work for yourself and put out your own music and have your own label without having, Warner Brothers or Interscope or a lot of these shady record labels getting in deals with them and getting screwed. Um, I didn't know that C. Dolores Tucker sued uh Tupac's estate after he died. That's cold blooded. She always seemed like a very kind of cold woman, kind of part of that bourgeoisie class. You have those black folks that look down on other black folks. I went to college, so I got to look down on the black folks who didn't go to college. But the fact that she sued Tupac after he passed away, and then she gonna state that because I guess because what Tupac, because Tupac did mention her name in his All Eyes on Me album. I can't remember what song, but I guess because he talked about her, it made her unavailable. I guess companionship. When they say companionship, right, that means that she couldn't really take care of her husband sexually. I guess because of the Tupac thing. Anyway, it's a bunch of that's crazy. What people do for money, man, I tell you. Anyway, what do y'all think about The Original Gangsters by Ben Westhoff? It's on Audible if y'all want to check it out. Leave your comments and subscribe to Charles and World. Y'all take care.